Coming up on Hands on Tech, 2 Samsung foldables and 1 Samsung wearable. That's right, I showed them all off on All About Android this week, and that's coming up next.
This is TWiT.
I have a couple of review devices that I've been playing around with. I can't say that I'm giving these necessarily a full review because I just have so much stuff right now. I haven't been able to focus on the phone specifically, but I thought it'd be a good time for us on the show to just get a little bit of hands-on. I would love to answer any questions you have, Ron, because I know your interest in the foldables, and I wish you had these in your hands. But anyways, I have the Samsung's foldable lineup that they announced, weeks ago, the Galaxy Z Flip 3 and then the Galaxy Z Fold 3 over here. And then I also happen to have the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. So I've got like the triple threat of Samsung hardware, that they announced, and it seems like a good opportunity to kind of show some of this off. So let's start with the Z Flip, and I would say, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit.
I love how tiny the Z Flip looks in your enormous Jason Howell hands.
Look at that.
It is.
Thing.
I mean, that is just. It's a little thing. It's a little thing. That's cute. How does it feel? What does the phone feel? How does the phone feel?
I mean, I gotta say, this thing is, it feels like a rock. Like, it really is a solid device. It feels, especially when it's folded out, like when it's folded out, I really wouldn't know that this is any different than a normal phone, except for the little crease that I feel on my finger. But I mean, it's just a solid, there's no real like hollow point. It doesn't feel cheap. The nice metal chassis is really nice. The hinge is just really high quality, and that goes also for the Z Fold 3, which we'll talk about in a second. But Samsung's done a really good job at creating a device that I feel like if you go into a store and you see this and the representative is like, oh, you know what you should try here? This is the Z Fold 3, and put that into someone's hands, and I guarantee you they're going to get that in their hand. They're going to be like, ooh, that's nice. Wait a minute, how much is that? $999? And as I guessed during the announcement, $999 brings this into a price category that, while still expensive, it's not like $1,000 is inexpensive for a smartphone. It is, but it brings it into that 3-digit mode realm that I feel like is just a little more palatable for most people. That's at least believable compared to what we've grown accustomed to, and especially what other comparative foldables cost. The Z Fold 3 is $1,800 and the Z Flip 3 is $1,000 or $1,050 if you're going to go and tack on some extra RAM. Or sorry, some extra storage, not the RAM. But yeah, it's nice. We've got the fingerprint sensor on the side. I've got that hopefully working appropriately. It does the cool things where when you go into the camera and you split this up, it transitions the screen into 2 different sections. So you've got your controls on the bottom. You've got what you're looking at on the top. And there's only, there's a certain lineup of apps that actually support this. So you're not going to get that with every single app on the device. But when it happens, things feel really custom. And, it's nice. It's nice to kind of have that layout. It also allows you to do things like prop it up and, use it as a tripod and the function form aspect of it, I think, is what's most compelling from my side. It lets you interact with the phone in a different way by and hopefully more apps take advantage of that, but it's going to require, adoption, right? Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they've been doing this since at least, this is the 3rd generation. I don't know if... I would say 3 years, right? Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know if there have been more app developers really kind of jumping into the compatibility aspect of this, but a lot of the main apps that are installed on the phone already do this. YouTube, some of the other apps do this by default anyways, so it's kind of baked in there. But it feels really nice. One thing, and I think Flo has mentioned this, it doesn't have the satisfying, like, like to slam it.
To hang up on somebody. You
got to pull really hard, and even when you do it, your fingers are going to get in the way, because if they're not, this thing's going to go flying out of your hand. So you don't really get that like satisfying like snap close. Like that was pretty good, but I don't even know that I'd risk it because it's all glass, and if I tried to snap it close and I flung it out of my hand and pulled a Jason, like I'd be pretty sad about that. I would be very.
But also,
happy
how often now these in old age are you having angry phone conversations with somebody where you need to hang up on them like that? Yeah, so
that's a really good point. Good point. I will say the display on the inside is just really pretty, very bright, 120 hertz AMOLED, 1080p, which I feel like is enough. 1080p never bothers me. I think it's important because you've got the battery that's a 3,300 milliamp hour battery in here, which is actually pretty small. Small on paper. I haven't used this with enough consistency to know how that fares for me on a daily basis, like day in, day out. But I know that a lot of the people who have reviewed this, that's one of their primary complaints is that 3,300 milliamp hours is pretty small and you really feel it. So if that display was any more than 1080p, you'd be getting worse battery life out of it anyways. And I think that's a solid trade-off. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, as far as the internals, both of these have the Snapdragon 888. So Samsung didn't do what they've done in the past where they kind of skimp on the internals in order to bring you the cutting edge technology. And that's why that $999 price point is so significant. You are really getting a top of the line smartphone. I think one of the only other areas that's maybe a step down are the cameras. Like if I don't have the exact specs in front of me, but if I had to like compare these cameras, I'd say the quality of the cameras that you're getting here are the quality of the cameras that you get on let's say a Samsung phone that's in like the $700 range, $700, $800 range, which is not bad. I mean, it's not like those cameras suck. It's just you're not getting the ultra, the ultra level cameras,
the flagship level of camera. Right?
Yeah. But again, what you're paying more for here is this unique. This unique design, and I really do think they've done a good job.
Is there a fingerprint sensor on there at all? Or
yeah, there is. It's on the side. It's right there.
Okay,
it's embedded into the power, so that's a power button, but it's also a fingerprint sensor. Yeah.
So it sounds like your thumbs up on the Z Flip 3.
Yeah, let's see if I can do it properly for the camera. Yeah, thumbs up for the Z Flip 3. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're doing a really good job. And IPX8 water resistant as well. That's a first for these foldables. Both of them IPX8 certified. That does not protect against dust, but it protects against submersion in water for up to 30 minutes, which is pretty amazing considering the first version of this had so many problems, and now they've tightened it up.
Whenever I read about that, I'm so scared to even test it. You know what I mean?
Totally. I'm not doing much testing of that.
It starts to rain and I put my phone in my pocket because I'm afraid something's going to happen, right? Like, oh man, it shows how far we've come. But,
Exactly. And so then transitioning on to the Z Fold 3, as you can see, very similar with the Z Flip unfolded and the Z Fold, very similar in height, very different when you actually turn on this display. You start to see, the bezels. Ooh. It's narrow. The bezels kind of pull it in. So you end up losing a little bit of that kind of like spaciousness when you're on the front screen, which is not to say that it doesn't work well as a phone in this capacity. Like you can totally do it. It's just things like typing on the on-screen keyboard, it gets really cramped. And so it's just not as grab and go as like a wider smartphone, like my Pixel, that little extra space of width on the front really does go a long way. So I do wonder if at some point they'll continue to tweak that. I don't know what they could do, but it would be nice to have it a little bit wider. And the more they can get this closer to an actual, just a single like candy bar type smartphone width, I don't even know if that's the direction that they're going, but I feel like if they do, it becomes a little bit more appealing because that does stand out to me when I use it.
You've got to wonder, at least on the Z Fold 3, what screen is the priority, right?
Yeah,
because
totally.
At some point, the device has to yield priority to either the folded screen like you're showing here, or the fold. Like I feel like the slimline folded version is on the go, taking calls, getting quick notifications, but then anything beyond that, you're opening it up and using it with the full width. That's my thought, at least.
Yeah, and that's a good point. One thing about the Z Fold 3 is that it supports an S Pen, a very specific version of the S Pen. So you can't just pull the S Pen out of your Note and use it on the Z Fold 3. But the downside of this is, and it's a special version because, as you know, with these foldables, the display is a very different type of display. You can see a little bit of that crease. The display, it's not a glass like we're normally used to using. It's got a little bit of kind of like a push to it, a little bit of a squishiness to it. Not nearly as squishy as it was on the first versions of these things where it felt like a pillow. They really tightened it up, but it is different and it is more fragile, right? So if you used a standard S Pen on this interior display, you could actually really scratch it up. So Samsung has made a specialized S Pen for this display. But of course, the downside to this is like the Note is not coming. Like there's not another Note. I personally doubt we're going to see another Note from Samsung going forward, which means that they're trying to position some of their other phones as Note alternatives for true Note fans. And true Note fans want the ability to pull their phone out of their pocket, pop that S Pen out, and just get to scribbling. And with this, you have to open it up. You have to unlock it, get that S Pen from wherever it happens to be because there's no real, oh no, hold on, let me unlock it. There's no real place to store it, right? You might have a case to store it in. They sell cases where the S Pen is embedded, but it slows you down. And for some people, that's going to be really annoying to have to open it. Not to mention, when you're using an S Pen on this large screen, it requires you to be really intentional with how you're holding this very expensive device, $1,800, $1,900 if you get 512 gigs of RAM. So there's a lot of, there's increased risk as far as that's concerned using the S Pen on the inside. So I don't know if it's an apples to apples comparison necessarily, but it's the direction that Samsung's going. But design wise, again, the hinge feels great. They're very similar. They're probably the same type of hinge, obviously different sizes, but it really does just feel very solid, very secure. Again, you can open it in any configuration that you like, and the screen will do its fun things. For some reason, now my fingerprint isn't working, but there we go. But yeah, now I did test something out because let's see here. I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I'm going to try and hold this up to the camera and it'll focus. So what you can see up at the top corner there is a less pixel dense area of the Z Fold 3. That's where the in-display camera is. This is the first Samsung phone that does
new technology, right?
A new technology. We've seen it in other devices. We've certainly talked about it on the show a lot, but now Samsung's got it in this device. And, low pixel density to allow the camera to kind of shine through. If I go to my camera app, you end up seeing, I'm going to turn that off. You end up seeing it's a cutout now, right? Like they've literally turned off the pixels there so that the camera that's underneath can shine through. And so the first image is the Flip 3 front-facing camera. That's just a standard camera right up at the top. And the second image is the Fold 3 front-facing camera. And they are a little different. It might be kind of hard, to be honest, to see the differences when you're flipping back and forth. But
before you overly analyze them, I think we can all agree that both photos are extremely handsome.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. Yeah, I can agree with that. It's true. It's true. I'm a handsome fella.
When you're starting with a subject and the bar is so high, it's hard to really analyze the nuance of. Just to drive the point home, I want you all to look at me on these phones. But, what I was hoping for is I wanted to take the same photo with a standard front-facing camera and then one that's shining through the pixels and see if there were any obvious standout changes. And technically, just looking at them side by side, they look pretty decent. I think what I notice on the Fold 3 is that there's maybe, and I noticed it when we were showing them full size too, is that there's maybe a little bit more of a contrasty element to it, and maybe that has something to do with their image processing after the fact. They're probably going through those pixels to take the picture, and they end up with a certain thing that they can then put a filter through it to kind of bring it back to its normalcy. That's just a total guess, but
But I mean, all things considered, I think that's pretty usable. Like if I took a front-facing camera picture with another front-facing camera and got that image, I'd be pretty happy with it. I'm not seeing anything that's making me go, wow, that's garbage, you know?
Yeah.
So that's good.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
So,
and again,
Z Fold 3 gets a thumbs up, or?
I mean, on a technical level, like as far as the technology is concerned, yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome. They've really come very far with the Z Fold 3. With the Z Fold series from the very first one, which kind of started as a disaster. So technologically speaking, I think it's a win. I think that a phone that's $1,800 just that doesn't work. Like that just doesn't fly. In my opinion, the only person that's buying this phone is someone who really is like totally geeked out on the foldable thing. Like no normal person is walking into the store and be like, I just want to buy a smartphone. Oh, $1,800. Yeah, sign me up. You know, like, I don't know. And, you know, maybe that's not the goal. I'm sure Samsung would love for these things to be flying off the shelves. And I'm not even saying that they're not. I'm just saying this is going to appeal to a very specific person. And I feel personally that $1,800 is still just too high for these devices. I wouldn't pay $1,800 for that personally. Yeah. But
I don't blame you.
Yeah. And then finally, we've got the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. Isn't it a classic looking watch? It actually, I have to say, I really like the design on this watch. I've been really enjoying wearing it. I went with the 4 Classic 42 millimeter. So there is a larger size. I believe the largest size is like 44 millimeter or 46 millimeter. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I went with the 44 millimeter thinking, you know, normally I get these watches and they're gigantic on my wrist. So I'm going to take the step down and take the chance that it actually looks normal. And it totally looks normal. Like I actually look forward to putting this watch on. It's probably the first smartwatch that I've used and received that I actually like want to wear. It doesn't feel, you know, it doesn't feel like it's made from a technology company that, you know, just does the same kind of watch that we've seen a million times. Like it has style to it. And I really like the white band, the stainless steel frame. I'm happy I went with this one. It comes with a wireless charger. This one in particular does not support LTE, but, you know, it does all the fun things that Samsung has added in its watch series. It has the rotating bezel, which is what you see here. I could still swipe if I wanted to, but the rotating bezel makes it even more fun. And, you know, this is notably the first Wear OS 3 wearable. And I got to say, so far, I actually really like it. It's kind of hard to know where Samsung ends and Google begins as far as that's concerned, you know. But, I mean, from a experiential standpoint, this thing is rock solid. I've not once encountered like, oh man, it's slowing down or it feels laggy or anything like that. I feel like things are snappy. They're responsive. One thing I really like about this watch is I go for a walk with my dog almost daily now, and I don't have to actively turn it on and say start walk mode. I just start walking, and after 5 or 7 minutes, I feel a buzz on my wrist and I look down and it's like, yeah, we've been tracking you for this. We realize you're now walking and you might want to track this. So we've automatically started tracking for you. And then when I sit down later, it's like, oh, we detected that you're done with your workout. You know, it's like, and that's
pretty smart. That's pretty cool.
For me personally, that's what I need, because I'm just not really that interested in tracking a lot of exercise stuff and being really manual about it. Like, all right, now I'm going to lift weights. I'm going to stop everything I'm doing and punch it into my watch. Like, I'm not the person to do that. But I love those kinds of features where it's like, hey, we noticed you're doing this. We're just going to track it for you anyways. And so that's pretty neat.
Cool.
Yeah, but
that's sort of like intuitive detection of what you're doing. That's what the promise of a good wearable is, right?
Yeah, totally. I would imagine that's where we want these things to go. Is like, we've dialed in our algorithms so much that we know that this is the motion that happens when you're rowing, or I don't know. You know, maybe that's too much to ask, but I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that at some time they've got that figured out that it could do that wisely. It certainly knows when I'm walking, and that's the thing I do a lot. So, so that's good. I have had this connected to my Pixel. That's primarily that's what I'm really connecting the watch to. And I've had more than a few occasions where I'm on a phone call with someone with Bluetooth earbuds, and somewhere halfway into the call, the phone app just suddenly switches to the watch and away from my buds, and I can't get it to switch back. I don't know where the fault lies there, but it's annoying nonetheless when it happens. But yeah, I really like the Watch 4 Classic. I have to say they've done a really good job of it, and that's probably the device that I've used the most out of the three of these. Primarily because I can just throw it on my wrist and use it throughout the day.
Yeah, it's a little more passive.
It is a little bit more passive. I hate to say. So let me in my old age.
So let me ask you though: have you used the combination of the watch and either of the folds in a kind of like this is a day in the life kind of mode? Like, could you see yourself subscribing to the Samsung ecosystem with both with one of those two foldables and the watch?
I probably should have done that so far, but I have not. I have not. I mean, what I know about the watch is that mostly, from my understanding, most of the feature set is really works with my Pixel. There's certain things that it's not going to tie into. There's certain health things. I can't remember the feature off the top of my head, but there's one specific health thing that requires the Samsung phone with the app installed, the Samsung Health app, in order for that feature to work. Those aren't features that I'm using regularly, so that doesn't really bother me that much. Yes, you're locked into Bixby here, so I just don't use that. You can't do Assistant, and that's a really big downside and definitely worth mentioning. Thank you, Robot. It's the EKG functionality that's limited to a Samsung phone. So you're locked into Bixby. You're locked into Samsung Pay. And so these are two things that I'm pretty certain at some point Samsung's going to push out an update and be like, okay, fine. That's what they've done in the past when they've locked you into using their thing like Samsung Pay or Bixby on phones in the past, and primarily in like programming a hardware button as a shortcut for these things. Initially, they were tied to their services, and then eventually they opened them up. And I'm sure that they're going to do that with the watch at some point. And I look forward to that because it's kind of a bummer not having that. But it hasn't been an end of story as far as I'm concerned. So, but that is the Samsung Hardware Showcase Showdown.
No ads, just the content. That's what you get when you join Club TWiT. You even get extras like TWiT Plus, our new bonus feed just for members, and exclusive access to the Club TWiT Discord community. Join now for just $7 a month and support TWiT as we continue to create top-notch podcasts you expect and deserve. We're just getting started, so be one of the first to join as we build Club TWiT from the ground up. You could be an early member. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit to learn more and sign up now. Thanks. Keep up with all the hottest tech news and gadgets. Visit twit.tv. There you'll be able to find and subscribe to all our tech shows. Thanks for watching Hands on Tech.